Hello and welcome. This is Angie Holden and I'm the blogger behind the Country Chic Cottage. So today is a very exciting day because the Cricut Maker is here. It's being announced today that Cricut is releasing two new machines, the Cricut Maker 3 and the Cricut Explorer 3. So I have the Cricut Maker 3 here. We're going to unbox it on video just for you and take a look at what's different between this and the previous Maker machine. Now, this video is sponsored by Cricut, however all projects and opinions are my own. So are you ready to dive into the box? Let's dive in, see what's inside the box, and of course, we're going to test this machine so you can decide which one you want to buy. So let's take a look inside. Alright, so here we go, opening the box, and right on top I see a package looks like this. Open that up and it has a few things. So there is some material, it looks like, and a let's get started guide. And this does say that it is smart vinyl. And there is a website. So if it's the first time you've purchased a Cricut, you go to a website address is on this card, and it walks you through the setup of your machine. Next, we're not even to the machine yet. A little bit of packaging material, a little bit more packaging material. We'll get all that out. And it's time to pull out the Cricut Maker 3. All right, so let's pull out this machine. We're going to take a closer look at it, of course, but here is the machine as it was in the package. And let's take a look at what is on the bottom of the packaging. So there is also a power cord as well as a USB cord to connect to the back. Now the Maker 3 does connect via Bluetooth, so you don't have to hook it up with the cable, but there is one there just in case. And it looks like there are a couple of pieces of smart materials so that we can cut those, because the Cricut Maker can cut without a mat. So there actually is no mat included. That's everything that's in the box. So mats would need to be purchased separately. You can still cut material on a mat, but you would need to purchase those separately. But it comes with smart material, so you can start creating as soon as you open the box. So let's take a closer look at this machine and what's different about it and the original Maker. So let's take a closer look at what comes in the box, and then we'll do a close-up of the machine itself. So the box includes your start guide with a piece of smart vinyl that you'll use to make your first cut. And then it includes samples of smart vinyl, smart iron-on, smart cardstock, and we will talk about all these materials in a minute, and a sample of transfer tape. Then you get your power cord, the USB cord to connect to your computer if you want to use that. Again, the machine does use Bluetooth, so you don't have to use that at all. And then it came with the fine point blade and housing already installed, and I removed some packaging from the inside of the Maker when I opened it up. So now let's take a look at the features of the Maker 3 and how it is different from the original Maker. So the first thing you may notice are these buttons over here on the side of the Maker 3. So the power button is roughly the same. The button for unload and load is a little bit different in design. But the center button that used to be a C for Cricut is now a play button. And then the pause button is the same. The button functions are the same as the original Maker. However, you will notice the difference in the buttons themselves. The housing is basically the same with an A and B side for markers and then blades on this side. It does have the same rotary gear, and all of your blades for the original Maker will fit into this machine. So this machine itself comes with the fine point blade and the fine point blade housing, and then you can buy all the rest of the Maker blades to insert into this clamp and use them with your Maker 3. You'll also notice it says Cricut Maker 3 right across here, which is a change from the original. The machine still has two storage compartments on the opposite side, the same as the original Maker. The tray still opens up for tool storage or storage for whatever else you would like. One of the big benefits of the Cricut Maker 3 is that it can cut without a mat. So we're going to look at those smart materials and we're going to cut something. But if you will take a look at the tray, it has guides on both sides, and there's one on this side as well, that help to guide that material straight into the maker. And if you'll look closely, there are also a couple of sensors. This helps sense if your material is straight, as well as if you have enough material when you're cutting. There's one located here, and there's also another one located inside the machine that you may not be able to see in the video, but you would be able to see in person. So that is a big change from the original maker. We'll also take a look at a roll feeder that is an additional option that you can add to this that will help you when cutting those really long rolls of material. You can add the roll feeder to the tray and have your roll of material located right on the machine to feed in. Otherwise, the machine is roughly the same in appearance from the original maker. The colors have changed, and right now, as of this video, this is the only color that the Cricut Maker 3 comes in. The back really hasn't changed. It still has the 2 ports, one for your power and one for your USB cord if you choose to use that. Because I did want to cover this more in depth. So the Cricut Maker 3 comes with the fine point blade and the fine point blade housing. However, it will take all of the blades that the original Cricut Maker would take. So you can purchase all of these separately. So we have the rotary blade, the foil tool with the 2 tips, the knife blade, the deep point blade, and then we have the housing that accepts the engraving tip, deboss tip, wavy tip, perf tip, and both the scoring wheels. So any of these can be used in the Cricut Maker 3. I also just wanted to note that the A clamp did not change size either, so it will accept the scoring stylus or any of the Cricut pens. So the original Cricut pens, infusible ink pens, any of the pens that you could use in your original Cricut Maker, you can also use in the Cricut Maker 3. I did also want to show that the mats will still work with the machine. They work the same as they always have. You just put them in. All of the original colors will still work with the Cricut Maker 3, and you can still cut on the mat for your projects. Alright, so now that you've had a chance to look at the Cricut Maker 3, let's talk about the main differences between the Cricut Maker 3 and the original Cricut Maker. So first, Cricut Maker 3, did we miss a number somewhere? They made the new Cricut Maker, the Cricut Maker 3, because there was an Explorer 1, a 2, and a 3, and they wanted to make the Maker 3 the equivalent of the Explorer. So it went from Maker to Maker 3. So no, you did not miss anything. Next, the Cricut Maker 3 is 2 times faster than the Cricut Maker when cutting smart materials. It cuts 8 inches per second, super fast, and we are going to take a look at just how fast. So first, let's take a look at these two head-to-head in a competition to see how fast the same cut can be made on both machines. So let's take a look. All right, so let's cut side by side. The Maker 3 is on the right. On the left, I have an original Maker. I have the original Maker. I'm going to operate it with my iPad. I'm going to operate the Maker 3 with my laptop. I have the same design on both. The Maker, I have it set to vinyl, and the Maker 3 cuts the 2 times faster when you cut with smart materials, so I'm going to set it to smart vinyl. And if you will notice, so the smart vinyl itself is as wide as the original Cricut mat, so we are going to go ahead and load that into the Maker 3. I already have my mat loaded into the original Maker, so we're just going to, the same way you load the mat for the Maker, we're just going to hold our material here and then press this unload load button. It went ahead and pulled my material in. It is going to check and make sure I have enough material and that the material is straight. And you will notice I'm not using the roll holder on purpose, so I want to use this without the roll holder on this experiment. So we will cut a piece using the roll holder itself here in a few minutes. So what I want to do is press both of these at the same time. So I have my iPad set for my Maker. I I have my laptop off to the side over here, set for the Maker 3, and both of the lights are flashing. So the go light on both is flashing. So I'm going to press them at exactly the same time, and they're going to cut exactly the same file. So, and I'm going to let this run in real time so you can watch them both cut. The video will not be sped up at all. I do want to note that. So when I press these, it will be live, cutting both materials, Maker 3 versus original Maker. So let's press them both at the same time. Just like that, the Maker 3 is done. So the unload load button is flashing. We're going to see how much longer it takes the original Maker to cut that same design. right, the original maker is finally done. The light is flashing. So now I will unload them both. But I think you can really see from that comparison that the Maker 3 is way faster when cutting smart materials. This is the design I cut with both machines. This one with the Maker 3, this one with the original Maker. Both weeded beautifully. I just wanted to go ahead and weed them to show you the design, to show you that it was fairly intricate, because I wanted to really give the machines a test. So this is what it cut during that test, both the same. I just want to note there is a slight difference. So the smart materials need a little bit more room at the beginning for the machine to grab before it can start cutting, whereas when you're on the mat you don't have as much space up there. So that's where those extra few inches came in when we were designing, is that space at the beginning and of course the end. So just wanted to note that it's not much, but it is a little bit of difference. All right, so that is even more amazing in person than it is on video, I can tell you that. The Cricut Maker 3 is so fast, cuts amazingly fast, and you will be done with your projects even quicker than you were before. So what are the other differences? So what I like to think of it is that the Cricut Maker 3 is everything the Cricut Maker can do plus some other functions. So you have everything the Cricut Maker can do plus the faster cutting of the Maker 3 plus the ability to cut without a mat with smart materials on the Cricut Maker 3. So those are two things that the original Cricut Maker cannot do. But otherwise, the Cricut Maker 3 can still do everything the Cricut Maker could do. So as you saw, you can still use your same blades, you can still cut on a mat, you can still cut all those amazing materials you've been cutting with your Cricut Maker for years, you can still cut with your Maker 3. So don't worry about not being able to do something. The functions are still there with the Maker 3, but you get that added benefit with cutting without a mat on the smart materials and the additional benefit of the 2 times faster cutting when you're cutting the smart materials. So let's talk smart materials next. What are smart materials? So you can get iron-on, vinyl, as well as smart cardstock that go into your Cricut Maker 3 or Cricut Explorer 3, either one, and they will cut without a mat. So what that means is you can put these materials into your machine and cut them with no mat required. So let's take a closer look at the smart materials as well as the new accessories that are coming out, including a roll feeder that you are going to love. So let's take a closer look at the smart materials themselves so you can get a better feel for all the materials that are coming out for these new machines. Here is the Smart Paper Sticker Cardstock. So this is a size of 13 by 13, and you can cut it without a mat on either the Cricut Explorer 3 or the Cricut Maker 3. The Smart Sticker Cardstock is a cardstock with an adhesive backing. Now, if you wanted to use this in your existing Explorer or Maker, in other words, not the 3, you would probably have to trim it to 12 inches to fit on your mat, and then you could cut it with that as well. But if you get the Explorer 3 or the Maker 3, this one will cut without a mat. And you can use it for anything that you would use cardstock for. The adhesive backing makes it really great. Okay, Smart Vinyl. Smart Vinyl is the vinyl that you can cut without a mat on the Cricut Explorer 3 or the Cricut Maker 3. It comes in a variety of sizes. So it comes in removable and permanent. These rolls are 3 foot long. Then there are rolls that are 12 foot long as well as 21 feet long. Now, when you cut something that long, you're going to need transfer tape to go along with it. The transfer tape comes in a 12-foot roll as well as a 75-foot roll of transfer tape. So both of those will work when you want to cut something really long from Smart Vinyl, matless on the Explorer 3 or the Maker 3. Smart Iron-On, again, you can cut without a mat, and it comes in 3-foot rolls or 9-foot rolls in a variety of colors. So a few accessories you may want to consider. The first is a roll holder for the smart materials. This accepts the Smart Vinyl as well as the Smart Iron-On, attaches to the tray of either the Explorer 3 or the Maker 3. I'm going to do a whole video on how to set this up, but we will use it in just a minute so I can show you how it works. And then the second thing is a portable trimmer. So the Smart materials are 13 inches wide. So your regular trimmer that you may have at home probably only goes up to 12 inches. This one goes up to 13 inches, so you can cut your materials to length if you need to. So these are two accessories that are being released that you might want to consider when you purchase your machine. So now that you've seen this roll feeder and you're super excited about it, let's take a look at cutting with it. Now I will have another video tomorrow just on the roll feeder, so you can look at like installation and a few other things. But today I don't want to keep you in suspense any longer. Let's take a look at cutting some material with this roll feeder and the fact that you can still cut that 2 times faster even with this roll feeder on and hold those huge rolls of vinyl and iron-on up to 75 feet. So let's take a look. So first things first, when you're in Design Space, you will want to customize your experience for either the Maker 3 or the Explore 3. So you can pull down the menu for the machines and select the machine you're going to be using. And as you can see, Maker 3 and Explore 3 have been added. Now I am on my computer, but you will also have this option on mobile. Both of the new machines can be used either on mobile or on your computer. So I'm going to choose the Maker 3 because that's the one I have. And then I just added some text. But right now it's only like 4 inches by 0.7 inches. And we want to make that much bigger. So I'm going to zoom out. And you can resize it just the same way as you always have by either pulling or by typing in how long you want it. So let's say I have an 8-foot board. So I'm going to make it about 90 inches. And that gives me a height of 13.7, which will not fit. So it's giving me an error. So we're going to look at the error. And the maximum size is 11.75 inches. And it would be 144 inches, which would be 12 feet. So the cut can be up to 12 feet long. So let's unlock this and let's make our height 11.75. So now it fits within the dimensions. It's 11.75 inches tall, and then we have it at 90 inches wide to fit, let's just say, our 8-foot board for a sign. You could also play with letter spacing, all those kind of design details, but for this just rough example, we're going to go ahead and click Make It and see what happens. So once we click Make It, you can see it did not even ask us if we were going to be on the mat or not. That is because at this length, we are going to have to cut this without a mat. Now, it also tells us how long our material needs to be. I made my word 90 inches long to fit my 96-inch board, but I need 92 inches of material. So you will need a little extra material for each cut you make because it will need space on both ends for the machine to operate. So you do want to note that whenever you are working with your Cricut machine or the Smart materials. And you will notice that the box that I can choose without a mat is grayed out, and that's because this project is too large. So we can go ahead, let's click cancel, and let's add another example piece. So let's add an image. All right, so let's go ahead and add an image and just insert that into our canvas. And this time, let's, we'll resize it a little bit. Let's resize it to about 11 inches or so. And then let's click Make It. And this time, because the size of our design is small enough to fit on the mat, we are prompted in this way. So we can either cut on the mat, without the mat, or multiple ways. So we had a couple of different, we had black and yellow, and let's say in black we had the Smart material, say that's all I have of the black, and I would like to cut that without a mat. But on the yellow, all I have is like a traditional vinyl, and I want to cut that on the mat. So let's pick multiple ways and see how that works. So for this one, I'm going to say without the mat, because that's the only way I have the black vinyl. And let's say on this one, all I have is the regular vinyl, and I need to cut it on the mat. So I would do on the mat for this one. And I do want to note one thing before I click on the mat. I do want to say that the minimum amount of material that you can cut without a mat is a 6-inch piece. So you will note that it says here that I need a 6-inch piece, even though this piece is only like a little over 3 inches. That's because the machine needs 6 inches to feed in a matless design. So before I change that, I did want to note that for anyone, if you're having trouble and you can't figure out why your machine won't accept a 4-inch piece, this is why. So we're going to say we're going to do this on the mat. Okay, so now I can do this multiple ways. I can do this one without a mat, and I can do this one on the mat. So you have tons of different options when it comes to both matless and material that is on the mat. And in this case, let's hit continue, and let's look at what it looks like once we hook up our machine. So once you hook up your machine, it will be similar if you've ever used a Maker or an Explorer where you've put your dial on custom. The interface is the same. So I could browse for materials. I'm going to go ahead and say this, let's say this black cut, we'll cut it first, and we are using Smart Vinyl Permanent, and it'll ask us to put our fine point blade in clamp B and press the mat unload load button to start our cut. So it works in a very similar way to the machines you're used to. All right, so now we're gonna cut a piece with the roll feeder. So what's happening right now is I've hit the load unload button, and it's measuring the material. And as you can see, after it measures the material, it kind of comes off the roll and over the top of the roll to the back. So you do need some area still to operate even with the roll feeder. And I will do another video tomorrow on the roll feeder itself, the installation. Do note that it comes with a cutter, and I'm going to show how to use that in just a minute. So now that everything's fed in, the machine is ready to cut, and the go button starts flashing. So I'm going to click the go button and allow it to cut our design. Again, this cut is actually really simple, so it's going to go really fast. Again, this machine cuts super fast, and I'll just let it play through in real time because the cut will be done before you know it. It's a simple word. I did do a 32-inch cut, so it is something that would not fit on a 24-inch mat. I do want to note that. And it is as wide as the cut will go, I think, or right at it. So now you can see this material come back in that it spit out a while ago when it measured. So now it's pulling that material back in and cutting with that material. So you can see as it goes in and out, the roll feeder, adjusts for the material and allows it to go in and out flawlessly. So now it's done cutting. The unload load button is flashing. I don't want to hit that yet. What I'm going to do is run this cutter. So for smart materials, it's really important that the edge be straight, and this cutter makes sure that the edge is actually straight. So I ran the cutter across, and now I can click the button to unload. Now my project just unloads over the top of the roll. I can pull it out of the machine, and there is my roll of material still in my roll feeder, ready for my next project. Just really quickly, even though that cut really fast, the cuts are perfect, everything looks great, and the smart vinyl is super easy to weed. So while we're talking about the roll feeder and experimenting, let's try it with a roll of smart iron-on. So I'm going to go ahead and feed this into my machine. And I did want to note, so the roll feeder itself can handle up to a 75-foot roll. I'm not putting one that large in it today, but it can handle ones that large. I have mirrored my design, and I've chosen glitter iron-on as my setting. And we're going to cut that same hello design just because I had it pulled up on my machine. So you could make like a banner out of fabric or whatever with a longer iron-on design with smart iron-on. So once again, it's ready. So I will click the go button and it will start cutting my smart iron-on in the same way that it cut my smart vinyl off of the roll feeder. So you'll notice again, it fed it all the way out and off of the roll, but now it will pull that back in after it's measured the right amount and cut my Smart iron-on in the same way. Again, it's just as fast. All Smart materials cut at that 2 times speed. So you will notice it's super fast to cut and will be done within a couple of seconds. And now that it's done, once again, I'm going to use that cutter on the roll feeder to cut the material. Then I'm going to press unload. And there we have iron-on cut with the roll feeder with the Cricut Maker 3. Next up, let's cut some Smart iron-on material without the roll feeder. So we've seen the roll feeder work, and now I want to cut this without the roll feeder just to make sure that iron-on works. So again, this is the Smart iron-on roll, and I have my cut mirrored, and I have my material set to Smart iron-on glitter. Again, it checks to make sure I have enough material and that everything is straight and ready to cut. And then we can just press the go button as soon as it starts flashing. And this is, I'm gonna go ahead and press go. This is like a slightly more complicated design, so I may cut out a portion of this or speed it up a little bit. But the speed is the same on iron-on as it is on vinyl. So Smart materials cut with the 2 times faster cutting speed. All right, so now that this is done, we can unload it from the machine. And then I'll go ahead and cut this off with my cutter, and then we'll take a look at the design itself. So I am going to use my paper trimmer here, the longer version that was released for the Smart materials, because it is really important to get the cut straight on these for the next time you want to insert this roll into your machine. And there is my weighted design ready to add to a shirt. So now let's take a look at Smart paper and how to cut it and what it looks like. All right, Smart paper is an adhesive cardstock, so it is self-adhesive, and you can cut it matless. It does only come in 13 by 13 inch sheets, so they are square, and you can load it without a mat, just as I've done. And what you'll want to do in Design Space is pick the Smart paper sticker cardstock setting, and then it will, once again, measured our material, made sure we had enough, and then we just click the go button to cut our design. Now this is perfect for those projects, like super small projects, and you don't want to use glue. Use the adhesive cardstock, the glue's already on it, and because it's a Smart material, you'll see that it cuts super, super fast, even though we're cutting through paper this time and not vinyl or iron-on. So now that that cut is done, I'm just going to do the unload, and then let's take a look at what we've cut. So now you can see the piece of paper's been cut, hopefully, and then I can start to lift that up, and this is a sticker at this point. So we can lift it up, pick out any extra pieces, and then I have basically a sticker made of paper, and in this case I'm just going to take a card, stick it down to the front of this card. So with only a card, the sticker paper cardstock, and my Cricut Maker 3, I was able to make a card all within a few minutes. And so finally, let's cut something on the mat. So I'm going to cut the same thing that I just cut out of the sticker paper cardstock that I cut without the mat. I'm going to cut the same image with the mat. That way you can kind of see how much slower it is with the mat and you can see that it does in fact cut with a mat. So we're just going to click the go button and we can watch it cut. So now this will cut the same speed as the original Cricut Maker. So if you have the Cricut Maker, you may recognize this speed, and it will cut at that same speed when you cut on a mat. So the faster cutting speed is only when you cut without the mat on those smart materials. So you can see that it's cutting at basically the same speed as you might be used to with if you have a Cricut Maker or a Cricut Explorer. So now we can unload that mat and we'll take a look at our cut. Then we can just peel back the mat from the paper to get our cut piece off. And we'll just get rid of those few excess pieces, and you can see that yes, the Cricut Maker can cut on the mat. So now that you've seen everything the Cricut Maker 3 can do, I hope you're excited for this new release from Cricut. So I will have a video here in a couple hours on the Cricut Explorer 3 and some of the differences between it and the original Explorer. If you're interested in that one, be sure to stay tuned for that video. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, anything we covered, questions about the new machine, either the Maker 3 or the Explorer 3, feel free to drop down the comment section below and ask away. I'm happy to answer those in the comment section or in a future video. If you like this video, learn something new, learn something about this new machine, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't already, head on over to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. We have Cricut videos every week, and trust me, you don't want to miss any of those. So thank you all so much for joining me today for this exciting announcement, and I hope you learned a little bit about the Cricut Maker 3 and are just as excited as I am.